needs a great deal of introduction because of the fantastic work that he's been doing in the last, what about 4 years, 5 years now, Richard?
Just over 4 years, yeah.
Just over 4 years. And he has a regular TV show on Moat now. It's not Channel 201, is it?
191.
On Channel 191. People can keep up with the ongoing research for that. That comes out on Richard's show, which covers a wider and wider range of topics. And I'd like to thank him for coming to speak here today. And I know you will also thank him. He's going to ask you what he wants you to speak about in a minute. But I'll shut up now, and I'll get you to welcome Richard D. Hall in the traditional way. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Andrew. Okay. Can everyone hear me first? Is that audio level all right? Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, as Andrew said, I've actually got 3 presentations prepared, and I'm going to do 2. So I'm going to give you a choice of the first one. The first one covers the title here, The Media, Mind Control and Raoul Moat. And this is about, I cover a little bit on 7/7 and the media, and I'll go into various Manchurian candidates, people who have killed lots of people who I think have actually been mind controlled. The second talk covers the work of Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, the forensic historians, and that is an update on the shows that I did earlier this year about these 2 historians who have uncovered the grave of King Arthur, which the academic establishment will not look at, and I basically give you an update on that. So I'm happy to do this presentation or the other one. Has anyone got a preference? Blackett.
Media, mind control, Raoul.
Right, hands up for this talk. Hands up for Wilson and Blackett. Okay, this one it is then. Sorry. All right. Okay. My background is in engineering. I did an electrical engineering degree. I graduated in 1990, so I believe I have an objective approach to all of these subjects. And when I turned 40, somehow I got involved in television. I don't quite know how, but I'm very glad that happened. And the thing about my TV show, it is entirely independent. I do all the research, I do the filming, I do the audio, I do the presentation, and that cannot be said for any of the TV shows on television, including the alternative media TV shows. I can guarantee you that the TV channel that broadcasts my show has not influenced me one iota about the material I've been putting out. So it is 100% independent. And that is a picture of me at Newcastle University, believe it or not. As my mother used to say, fiddling with wires. Richard's fiddling with wires again. She once said to me, Richard, is it really necessary to have a car battery in your bedroom? I said, yeah. Doesn't everyone? Okay, now my sources, I don't have any secret MI5 sources or anything like that. They come from publicly available sources, the internet, people who give me information at events such as this, and also people who email me after my TV shows go out, and I have had some very good information from talks like this. Now, a couple of important facts that I have covered on my TV show first. Over the last few years, I've been covering, with the help of Andrew Johnson, the work of Dr. Judy Wood, and Andrew went into a little bit of detail on her book. Now, this book is the only comprehensive scientific investigation into the evidence of 9/11 by a qualified scientist, someone who could not be better qualified to examine and put over that evidence. And this book concludes, beyond any reasonable doubt, that the towers were destroyed using a directed energy weapon. That is now an established fact. It is not a theory. It is a fact, which has been proven, as I say, by a qualified scientist. Now, once you accept that as fact, and I recommend everyone read the book or watch the interviews, you come to the realization that that type of technology would not be in the hands of men with beards sitting in caves in Afghanistan. So it's blatant to me that the Al-Qaeda story is just a myth. Why would somebody do that? The reason given is that these are false flag events. They're staged events which allow those administrations to justify their wish to take over certain parts of the world. That's currently it's the Middle East, and I'm sure it will extend to the Far East at some point in time, because those who are behind these events, I have no doubt, are trying to bring about a one world government. Now, unfortunately, the same is true of the London bombings, 7/7/2005, and I recommend everyone read this book. In my opinion, this book gets closest to the truth behind the veil of 7/7 by Dr. Nick Colostrom. And again, this book proves that the 4 men accused of carrying out the London bombings were completely innocent patsies. Now, what can we do about this? Because I often say, I don't have an answer to this. I'm just trying to put out as much information as I can. Yesterday, I launched a campaign. If you go on my website, you can see details of it. And every single person in this room, every one of you, can help with this campaign. Because some people say to me, what can I do, Richard? What can I do to help? And I'm answering that question to every single one of you today. This is what you can do to help. Just watch this. This is a video that I'm going to put out on my show, and every one of you can help with this. It's called Tell Your MP About 7/7, and I'm just going to show a video which explains it. Okay, it's Saturday the 1st of September 2012. It's 9 AM in the morning, and I've come to Birdley. Now, the reason why I've come here is because I'm going to hand over some very important information to my MP, Dave Anderson. Dave Anderson is a Labour MP, and I've got some basically documentation regarding the London bombings of 2005. Viewers will know that I've extensively covered the London bombings on the TV show over the last couple of years, featuring Nick Colostrom, Anthony John Hill, and also intelligence analyst Tony Farrell. And I'm going to be handing over to Dave today, firstly, the book Terror on the Tube, written by Dr. Nick Colostrom, Behind the Veil of 7/7, a copy of this document, which was written by Dr. Rory Ridley Duff of Sheffield Hallam University, that looks at the events at Canary Wharf on the day of 7/7. This document, written by ex-police principal intelligence analyst Tony Farrell. This letter written by Dr. Nick Colostrom to Justice Lady Hallett, who sat at the inquest. Also going to give him a copy of the film 7/7 Ripple Effect, which seeks to expose the truth about the London bombings. And also 6 interviews that I've conducted with Nick Colostrom, Anthony John Hill, and also Tony Farrell. And with all of this information is a covering letter in which I state that the overwhelming body of evidence proves beyond reasonable doubt that the 4 young Muslims who have been blamed by mainstream media for carrying out the bombings are totally innocent. The mainstream media have grossly misreported the facts about 7/7 and are at best ill-informed and at worst complicit in the bombings. There is not one shred of evidence that would convict any of these young men, which is why under the law they are still totally innocent of any charge. So download the covering letter and documents from richplanet.net, then print them out, book an appointment to see your MP, email me when you have handed the documents to the MP, and if you get a responding letter from your MP, scan it in and email it to me, and I'll put it on the website. Now, I've got all 600 and odd MPs listed on my website, and the intention is, as I say, you can go to my website, click on the 7/7 campaign. There's a zip file. You download that. There's 6 documents in there, 43 pages in total. Print them out, sign it, and just book an appointment to see your MP and hand that evidence over.
Have you had a follow-up from your
I haven't had a follow-up yet, but when I went to see him, he actually said to me, "This wouldn't surprise me." There's a full report on my meeting with my MP, and I said to him, now that I've given you this information, when the truth does come out and those who actually perpetrated this crime are brought to justice, all of the MPs in Parliament, I know what they will say. We didn't know about this. Now you can't say that, Dave Anderson, because I've given you the information. And if we can do that with every single MP, that's going to turn the screw and put some pressure on them, because they need the information. Because one other thing that he said to me, he said that he was completely unaware that there was an alternative theory to the government narrative. He wasn't even aware. So he's completely unaware of the alternative media, which I thought was worthy of note. But one thing he did acknowledge is that the government has very little oversight of the intelligence agencies. Because he was involved in the miners' strike, he was a Labour MP. Now if we look at this image here, no, that's not Raoul Moat on the left there. The guy on his knees very much represents the human race, and David Icke recently wrote a book called Human Race, Get Off Your Knees. And I agree with David Icke, the human race does need to get off its knees. But the problem is the human race is in a headlock. But they're in a headlock that most cannot describe or see. Described by someone called Zbigniew Brzezinski as the technotronic control grid, which is a range of measures that a global elite use to keep people in this headlock. And I would actually add to that picture a hand coming through the guy's legs and grabbing him by the balls. Okay. Now, let's just represent this technotronic control grid by this hand above the earth. There are a number of strands or pillars of control, and I've just listed some of them, and I'm going to drill down into a few of them today. I describe them as money, the control of money, mind, and I'm going to come on to mind control, the media, the military, and mouth. By mouth, I mean obviously anything that you eat, drink. There's huge concern over fluoride in water. That is dumbing people down, according to experts. Aspartame in drinks, and of course the pharmaceutical industry. The fundamental problem with the pharmaceutical industry is it is not in their interests to cure people. It's not in their interest to cure people, because if they cure them, they don't need any of their drugs, therefore they don't make any money. It's actually in their interests to keep people ill, and that's something which needs to be addressed. Financially rewarding them for selling more and more pills needs to be changed completely. Now, if we're in this technotronic control grid, then why don't our democratically elected leaders do something about it? Because they're supposedly the ones in charge. Well, of course, they're controlled by the technotronic control grid, and our leaders are chosen by these people who control this. And that includes our MPs. I actually call MPs prostitutes in suits. Not because they have sold their bodies, but because they have sold their minds. Why have they sold their minds? They have sold their minds because not one of them speaks the truth. Not one of them will talk about either of these events, the truth of either of these events, not one MP. So they do not speak the truth, which is why I call them prostitutes in suits. At best, they are agony ants to their constituents. People go and whinge about their problems, and then they go back to Parliament and do nothing about it. And I would actually say that members of Parliament are not politicians. What a crazy statement. Well, what is politics and what are politicians? Politics is the discussion or debate of subjects that will bring about real changes to people's lives. That's what politics is, and I would argue that most politicians have no power to be able to bring about change. And I'm just going to illustrate this with this analogy. Just imagine that our political landscape is being discussed in this huge football stadium, and the players on the pitch are the political players in politics. What are the real issues which have brought about change in our world that the politicians should be aware of and should be discussing? Well, the first is the central banking system, and I'm going to touch very briefly on money. Our politicians really have no say in how currency is generated and entered into the economy. So they have no control over that issue. They have no control over the media. In fact, they are victims of media manipulation because they believe the bogus stories put out about 9/11 and 7/7. So they are victims victims of media manipulation. They're not in control of that. So they're outside of that power. False flag operations, again described in those two books, they would not even acknowledge that false flag operations have occurred. But what have false flag operations brought about in the world? Massive change. They've brought about military invasion of several countries and regime change. Millions of people have been killed as a result of false flag operations. That's real change in the world. That's real power politics. Do our politicians have any input into those decisions? None. They do not have the power. And they do not know about the hidden technology that Andrew Johnson spoke about either. Not just energy weapons. There is other hidden technology which our powerless politicians have no knowledge of. Commodities such as oil, coal, food and water are all controlled by corporations, and in those corporations the tail wags the dog. The politicians are just subservient to them. Health policies are determined by the World Health Organization and dictated to our government. Now, if you notice in my picture here, there's a little football pitch down here, a little five-a-side pitch with some kids playing jumpers for goalposts. That represents our parliament. That's the politics being played out on that pitch. Because what are the sort of issues that they discuss in our parliament? Things like, should we have 17.5% or 20% VAT? Or how about, should we increase health budget by 1% or decrease education by 2%? Does it matter? Are they really making big decisions? And a great one that they love to spend all their time over is fake scandals. Whenever you see anything on the news which has the word scandal after it, remove the word scandal and replace it with PSYOP, psychological operation, because we've had the phone hacking. It's not a scandal, and I'll explain why. It's a psychological operation. But the MPs fall for the scandal and get all wrapped up in it. And we've had this interest rate fixing scandal and numerous other scandals that they get wrapped up in. It's small fry, it's small beer. It's not anywhere near as important as the political power in these issues that our MPs have no control over. And somebody said to me recently, "Hey Richard, why don't you become an MP? You'd be great." I said, "What, and play on this shitty little football field outside the main ground?" I'm in the main stadium at the moment, right, but I'm not on the pitch, I'm not making any decisions, I have no influence over it, but at least I'm watching the match. Our MPs aren't even aware of the match. And because this power is pretend power, it's not real power, they have to convince people of this. They have to sell this fake power, and they spend a lot of effort doing that. It's guys like this, Nick Robinson or whatever he's called. They try and sex up the this politician, Labour said that, Conservative said that. It's complete trash. If only he'd been in my class at school. Right. Okay, let's drill down into some of these areas then. I mentioned money. I'm just going to keep it as short as I can on money because there's so much bullshit spoken about it. And I'm going to do it again with another analogy. Let's just imagine that the main financial centres of the economy are football teams. So you've got the banking system is one football team, the government is another, private industry is another, maybe the health service is another, private individuals is another. And they're all playing in this league trying to get your cut, okay? The current system, the bankers' home ground is on an angle of about 30 degrees like that, and they're always allowed to kick down. Not only that, their goal is about a quarter of the size of everyone else's, right? Which is why they always win the league and why they always get the prize money and why they're wealthier than everyone else. Now, what is the solution to that problem? Is it to say, ooh, these bankers team, I don't like that. Let's stop the players' bonuses. Let's give them lower bonuses. That'll sort it. Would that sort the problem? Because that's what they say about the banking system in the media. They say, we need to stop these bankers' bonuses. That'll sort them out. Would that sort the problem? Because the club would still be getting all of the spoils and winning the games. What is the solution to the problem? Well, it's to level a pitch first and make the goal the right size as well. But the problem is most people can't define or don't know how to make that pitch level. And I'm going to explain to you 3 things that would make that pitch level. If you did these 3 things, it would make that pitch level. The first, a sovereign government which has sovereign currency can't possibly be in debt, right? If it's in debt to an outside entity, then it is not the government. The outside entity loaning it the money is the government. It's like the bank running out of money in Monopoly. That never happens. Just as the government can never run out of money, that's impossible. It's a con, because the interest being paid by you and I through the government to the outside party is a phenomenal amount of money, and that does not need to exist. The government should have the right to create currency. It can't possibly be in debt. That's the first thing that needs to change. The second thing, when money is introduced into the economy, it's done through a system of fractional reserve banking, whereby money is loaned from the Bank of England into the commercial banks and then is loaned out to individuals and businesses. But that money, when it's reinvested back in the bank, is loaned out again and again and again. And that means that the banking system gets interest several times on the same piece of money. That's another con, and the overall effect of fractional reserve system is that wealth over time, 10, 20 years, is transferred from the common man and business into the hands of the bankers. So fractional reserve banking needs to be outlawed and ended. So if you put your pound in the bank, it stays in the bank. It doesn't get reloaned. If you need a loan, you would get it centrally from the government, interest-free. The third thing that needs to happen, and I've just mentioned it in that last sentence, is that usury needs to be made illegal. All charging of all interest, and of all credit cards, all interest needs to be made illegal, as it says in the Bible and in the Quran. Okay? Because you're making money, all interest is effectively slavery. All right? How would you get a loan? You'd get it centrally from a central bank, and then pay it back with no interest. If you did that, you can easily eliminate inflation. There would be no inflation because the government could control the amount of money in the economy. And the pound in your pocket today would be worth the same as what it is. It would be worth the same in 40 years' time. So there would then even be no need to put your money in a bank because it wouldn't be threatened by inflation. Those 3 things would achieve that. Now, you will never ever hear any of those 3 things discussed on television, because the people who run the banks also control the television. There endeth the lesson on money. Okay, I mentioned pharmaceuticals, etc. Now, in the military, just briefly to touch on the military, they've been using these unmanned drones to expand their empires into other nations, in particular Pakistan. Why is the US bombing thousands of innocent civilians in Pakistan? And there doesn't seem to be any outrage of this. And these craft are flown thousands of miles away by US Air Force personnel in bases, sitting drinking hot cups of coffee. They go and have their lunch, they come back, and then they kill another village. And they're trying to get these drones put in our skies. They're trying to pass legislation to have unmanned drones flying around the UK and the US, and the excuse that they're using is we need them to have CCTV security to monitor the crime or what have you, when they could easily be retrofitted with missiles. The prostitutes in the suits will vote for them. The other thing that the military have at their disposal is secret technology, secret military technology, which Andrew spoke about. Okay, let's talk about the media then. Neil Sanders spoke about this quite a bit. Now, there are various methods, techniques that the media use to propagate their lies, and one of them, I've termed it the phony bone of contention, and I spoke about this last year. What this is when they put a story in the media where there's contention, so there's an argument over something, and the subtext of the contention contains a flawed assumption, right? And I'll explain what I mean by this. Here's an example of one. So this is the headline of the Daily Mail. This was not long ago. Betrayal of a 7/7 bomb victim. Born to British parents, married to a British wife. A symbol of British courage. So why is he now facing deportation? So this is some guy, and inside that cover there's a picture of him with a bandage on his head and blood on his face. He was a victim of the bombings in London. So they're creating an argument because the government are trying to deport him for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason